My name is Alara, and I was 20 years old when I first felt it. Not with my hands, but with my soul. I was sitting on the weathered driftwood bench at the edge of Osprey Point, my favorite place in the world, the salty breath of the Pacific Ocean filling my lungs. The late afternoon sun painted the water in strokes of gold and rose, and for a moment, I was a part of that perfect, sprawling canvas. Then a subtle shift, a dissonance in the symphony of my own body. A deep, persistent ache began to thrum at the base of my skull, a strange and unwelcome note in the quiet peace of the evening. I remember thinking it was just a headache, a consequence of too many hours spent hunched over marine biology textbooks. But this felt different. It was a pressure, a presence. I reached back, my fingers tracing the delicate curve of my neck, and there it was. A small, firm knot no bigger than a hazelnut, nestled just below my hairline. It wasn't painful to the touch, just there. An uninvited guest that had taken up residence in the most intimate architecture of my being. I knew, with the chilling certainty that sometimes precedes disaster, that this was not a simple muscle knot. I was a student of life, of the intricate systems that govern the creatures of the sea, and I understood that the body, like the ocean, sends signals. Small ripples that can warn of a coming storm. I had to tell my parents. I had no idea that this small, hard discovery was the first tremor of an earthquake that would shatter the foundations of my life, and that I would spend the next 6 months fighting not just for my health, but for the right to be heard. My family lived in a pristine, modern house perched on a hill overlooking the town of Port Blossom. It was a house of clean lines, large windows, and an almost sterile orderliness that stood in stark contrast to the wild, untamed beauty of the Oregon coast I adored. My mother, Eleanor, was the architect of this order. A retired pediatric nurse, she now channeled her formidable energy into her award-winning garden and her role as a prominent figure in the local community. Everything in her world had to be perfect, controlled, and aesthetically pleasing. This extended, most especially, to her daughters. My father, Arthur, was a quiet man, a financial advisor who seemed to recede into the background of our lives, a gentle ghost in a house run by the force of my mother's will. He was kind but passive, a man who had long ago decided that harmony was best achieved through acquiescence. Then there was Chloe, my younger sister. At 16, she was the sun around which our family unofficially orbited. A straight-A student, a gifted pianist, the very picture of the daughter my mother had envisioned. She moved through life with an effortless grace that I, with my quiet intensity and my preference for muddy boots over polished shoes, had never managed to emulate. I chose to speak to my mother the next evening at dinner. The table was set with practiced precision linen napkins, gleaming silverware, water glasses filled to the exact same level. Chloe was recounting a success at her debate club, her words bright and animated. My father was listening with a placid smile. "Mom," I began, my voice feeling small in the cavernous dining room. "I found something yesterday. A lump on my neck. I think I should probably get it looked at." Eleanor didn't look up from cutting her salmon into perfectly symmetrical pieces. "Alara, you're always so dramatic. It's a swollen gland. You're stressed about your midterms." "It doesn't feel like a gland," I insisted, my hand instinctively going to the spot. "It's hard. And it doesn't move." She finally lifted her gaze, a flicker of impatience in her eyes. "You spend too much time worrying. It's the pressure of your program. Stop inventing problems to get out of your responsibilities." My father glanced from her to me, a flicker of something unreadable in his expression, before he returned to his meal. Chloe let out a small, almost inaudible scoff. "This isn't about my studies," I said, my voice trembling slightly. "I'm genuinely worried." "We'll see," my mother said, her tone a final, dismissive full stop. "If it's still there in a few weeks, we can reconsider. Now, Chloe, tell us more about the debate tournament." The conversation moved on, leaving me stranded on an island of my own fear. I went in my room, the sound of the distant foghorn a lonely echo of the alarm bell ringing inside me. The lump was still there, a tiny, solid piece of evidence that my body was trying to tell me something my family refused to hear. Over the next 2 weeks, the headaches became a near-constant companion, a dull throb that often sharpened into a piercing pain behind my eyes. A profound fatigue settled into my bones, so heavy that I would sometimes fall asleep at my desk, my cheek pressed against a diagram of a cephalopod's nervous system. The irony was not lost on me. I approached my mother again, finding her in the greenhouse, her sanctuary of control. She was meticulously pruning her prize-winning roses, the snip of her shears sharp and definitive. "Mom, the lump is bigger. And I'm getting these awful headaches. I really think I need to see a doctor." She set down her shears and turned to me, wiping a smudge of dirt from her cheek. Her expression wasn't one of concern, but of weary frustration. "Alara, when I was your age, I was working 2 jobs to put myself through nursing school. I didn't have time for headaches or mysterious lumps. We had a resilience you young people seem to lack. This is a test of character. You need to push through it, not give in to it." Tears of frustration pricked my eyes. This isn't about character. This is my health. Something feels wrong. "Enough," she said, her voice dropping to the calm, steely tone that meant the discussion was over. "Go study. Your marine flora exam is next Friday. Don't disappoint me." That night, I felt a chasm open between my mother and me, a void filled with her denial and my terror. I tried to talk to my father as he sat in his study, surrounded by the quiet certainty of market charts and financial reports. "Dad, I'm scared about this lump." "Mom won't listen. Can you help me?" He took off his reading glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose, his customary gesture of discomfort. "Your mother, she knows about these things, Alara. She's a nurse. She wouldn't dismiss it if she thought it was serious. But what if she's wrong?" I pleaded. He gave me a weak, placating smile. "Try not to worry. It'll probably just go away on its own. You're strong." I went to bed feeling utterly, devastatingly alone. My own parents, the 2 people who were supposed to be my harbor, had cast me adrift in a storm they refused to see. I lay in the dark, my fingers pressed against the unyielding knot in my neck, and wondered what was growing in the silence, and why nobody cared enough to listen. 2 months after my initial discovery, the lump had grown to the size of a large marble. It was a visible protrusion now, a small hillock on the landscape of my neck. The headaches had intensified, and a new symptom had joined the terrifying chorus: dizziness. The world would sometimes tilt unexpectedly, forcing me to grab onto a table or a wall to keep from falling. My grades, once a source of pride, were slipping. I, who had found solace and wonder in the ordered chaos of the natural world, could no longer focus on my studies. My best friend, Maya, was the first person outside my family I confided in. We were walking along Agate Beach, the mist clinging to our jackets, the rhythmic crash of the waves a soothing counterpoint to the turmoil in my head. I finally broke down and told her everything, showing her the lump that I had kept hidden under scarves and high-collared shirts. Her reaction was immediate and fierce. "Alara, this is not okay. Your mom is a nurse, not a radiologist. You have to see a doctor. If they won't take you, I will." Maya was my anchor. We'd met in a freshman biology lab, bonding over a shared fascination with tide pools and a mutual dislike of our condescending professor. She was studying to be a veterinarian, and she possessed a practical, no-nonsense empathy that was the exact opposite of my mother's brittle perfectionism. "What if it's something bad?" I whispered, the words tasting like ash. "Then the sooner you know, the better," she said, her hand firm on my arm. "We're making an appointment. Today." Emboldened by her support, I called the Harborview Medical Clinic, the very place my mother had once worked, and made an appointment with a family doctor, Dr. Anya Sharma. The relief I felt was immense, a small flicker of light in a long, dark tunnel. It was extinguished that evening. My mother confronted me in my bedroom, her face a mask of cold fury. "The clinic called to confirm your appointment for tomorrow," she said, her voice dangerously quiet. "An appointment you made behind my back." "I had to," I said, my own voice surprisingly steady. "You wouldn't help me. You defied me," she hissed. "You went against my judgment. Do you have any idea how humiliating this is? I have friends at that clinic. They'll think I can't even manage my own family, that my own daughter doesn't trust me. This isn't about you or your reputation. I shot back, the injustice of it all making me reckless. This is about my health. I've canceled the appointment, she stated, as if announcing a change in the weather. I stared at her, incredulous. You what? You can't do that. I absolutely can. You are on our insurance plan, living under our roof. As long as that is the case, you will show your father and me the respect we deserve. Your respect could be killing me. I yelled, the words tearing from my throat. My father appeared in the doorway, drawn by the shouting. He looked like a man caught in the crossfire of a war he didn't understand. What's all this noise? Your daughter is being hysterical, my mother said, turning her back on me. Making secret appointments for this imaginary ailment of hers. I looked at my father, my last hope. Dad, please. I need to see a doctor. Something is really wrong. He shifted his weight, his eyes darting from me to my mother's rigid back. Listen to your mother, Alara. She's just trying to protect you from unnecessary worry. I felt the last thread of hope snap. Neither of you are listening, I whispered. You're not protecting me. You're abandoning me. As my mother swept out of the room, my sister Chloe paused in the doorway. She surveyed my tear-streaked face with a look of detached annoyance. Why do you always have to make everything so difficult? She asked. Mom's just trying to help you focus. You're always so dramatic. She walked away, leaving me in the ruins of the conversation. That night, I emailed my Aunt Isabel, my mother's younger sister. A ceramic artist living a bohemian life in the high desert of New Mexico, Isabel was the family eccentric. She and my mother had a relationship held together by the thinnest of threads, but she had always been a source of warmth and acceptance for me. I poured out my story, attaching photos of the lump and a detailed log of my symptoms. Her reply arrived the next morning, a lifeline thrown across 1,000 miles. My dearest Alara, this is not your imagination. This is serious. I'm booking a flight to come see you next month. Until then, you are a scientist. Document everything. Keep a journal. Take photos daily. Fight for yourself. Your health is the only thing that matters. All my love, Aunt Isabel. Her words gave me a renewed sense of purpose. If my family wouldn't create a record, I would. I began to meticulously document my own decline, my journal becoming a testament to the truth they refused to see. For months after I first felt the lump, my world had shrunk to the space between one headache and the next. The knot at the base of my neck was now the size of a small plum, a constant, weighty pressure. My balance was precarious. I moved through the world as if walking on the deck of a ship in a heavy swell. One afternoon, in the university's Marine Science Center, it happened. I was standing in front of the large cold water tank, watching the mesmerizing drift of the jellyfish, when the colorful display began to smear and tilt. A wave of intense dizziness washed over me. I reached out to steady myself against the cool glass of the tank, but my legs buckled. I remember the sound of my shoulder hitting the floor, the shocked gasp of a nearby student, and the kaleidoscopic blur of the blue water and vibrant jellies spinning above me before everything went dark. My next conscious thought was of a siren's wail, a sound that seemed to be coming from inside my own skull. I was on a stretcher, the bright lights of the ambulance ceiling flashing past. A cool hand was holding mine. I turned my head, the movement agonizing, and saw Maya's face, pale and strained. "Hang on, Alara," she said, her voice choked with emotion. "We're almost there." The emergency room was a blur of controlled chaos. Doctors and nurses moved with urgent purpose, their voices a low hum of medical terminology. A kind-faced doctor, whose name badge read Dr. Evans, shone a light in my eyes. "Patient is a 20-year-old female, collapsed with apparent neurological symptoms," he said to his team. "Let's get a stat CT of her head and neck." A nurse informed me they had called my parents. "No," I managed to whisper, the words scraping my raw throat. "Please don't." But it was too late. They arrived 20 minutes later, my mother's face a thundercloud of fury, my father's a mask of bewildered fear. What is the meaning of this? My mother demanded of the nearest nurse. My daughter is prone to fainting spells when she's stressed. There was no need to call an ambulance. Dr. Evans intercepted them. Mrs. Collins, I'm Dr. Evans. Your daughter's symptoms are highly concerning. She's exhibiting signs of increased intracranial pressure. We need to do an MRI immediately. This is absurd, my mother scoffed. She's just looking for attention. It's finals week. At that moment, a woman with warm, intelligent eyes and a determined set to her jaw strode into the curtained-off bay. I'm Dr. Anya Sharma, she said, her voice calm but firm. I'm Alara's physician. I've been trying to get her an MRI for weeks. My mother's eyes widened in recognition and anger. You're the one who has been encouraging this delusion. Mrs. Collins, Dr. Sharma said, her professionalism a shield against my mother's hostility. As a former nurse, you must recognize the gravity of a patient presenting with these symptoms. Your daughter is very sick. I want proof, my mother insisted, crossing her arms. I want to see these scans you're so eager to perform. Eleanor, please, my father murmured, placing a hand on her arm. Let's just listen to the doctors. The MRI felt like being buried alive in a tomb of noise. As I lay in the narrow tube, the machine banging and whirring around me, I prayed. I prayed for answers, and I prayed for the strength to face them. 2 hours later, we were in a small, quiet consultation room. Maya sat on one side of me, her presence a solid comfort. My parents sat opposite, a gulf of tension between us. Dr. Evans entered, followed by a tall, serious-looking man he introduced as Dr. Carter, a neurosurgeon. The MRI images glowed on the screen behind them. Even to my untrained eye, the image was terrifying. A large, shadowy mass was blooming at the base of my skull, pushing against the delicate structures of my brain. Alara, Dr. Carter began, his voice gentle but direct. The MRI shows a significant tumor in your cerebellum, pressing on your brainstem. Based on its appearance, we believe it is a glioblastoma, a very aggressive form of brain cancer. The room fell utterly silent. The only sound was the frantic beating of my own heart. It felt as if I were floating outside my body, watching a scene from a movie. Given its size, he continued, his gaze compassionate, it has likely been growing for at least 6 to 8 months. If we had caught it earlier, the treatment options they would have been different. I slowly turned my head to look at my parents. My father had collapsed back in his chair, his face the color of ash. My mother was frozen, her mouth slightly agape, her expression one of utter, sickening disbelief. The reality she had so fiercely denied had just crashed down upon her. What is the prognosis? My mother whispered, her voice a fragile, broken thing. Dr. Carter hesitated. Glioblastoma is a formidable opponent. Given the delayed diagnosis and the tumor's location, the fight ahead will be difficult. But you're young, Alara. That is a powerful advantage. My mother swayed, and my father, moving as if in a dream, reached out to steady her. The color had drained from their faces, leaving them looking like hollowed-out versions of themselves. This can't be, my mother murmured, shaking her head. There must be a mistake. I'm afraid the images are unequivocal, Dr. Carter said softly. We need to schedule emergency surgery to relieve the pressure and resect as much of the tumor as we can. As the doctors outlined the terrifying path ahead: surgery, radiation, chemotherapy, I watched the carefully constructed world of my parents crumble. All the perfection, all the control, all the denial, incinerated in the harsh, undeniable light of the MRI scan. That evening, in a private room on the neurology floor, the truth finally came out. Aunt Isabel had arrived, having taken the first flight from Albuquerque after Maya's frantic call. She blew into the room like a desert wind, her turquoise jewelry rattling, her eyes blazing. "What have you done, Eleanor?" she demanded, bypassing my parents to come straight to my bedside. "Isabel, this is not the time," my mother said weakly. "Not the time. Isabel's voice was shaking with a righteous fury. Alara has been telling me for months what was happening. How you ignored her, shamed her, told her she was imagining it. You, a nurse. You know our family history. My mother paled. Don't. She deserves to know, Isabel insisted, turning to me. Alara, honey. Your grandmother, our mother, she died of a glioblastoma when she was 45. So did our Uncle David. It runs in our family. I stared at her, then at my mother, a new, more profound layer of betrayal settling over me. You knew? You knew this was a risk, and you did nothing. My mother finally broke, sinking into a chair and burying her face in her hands. I couldn't, she sobbed, her words muffled. After Mama died, I lived in terror. Every headache, I thought it was my turn. I didn't want you and Chloe to live with that fear. So instead you pretended the fear wasn't real, even when it was staring you in the face? Isabel asked, her anger softening into a deep, sorrowful pity. My father, who had been a silent statue in the corner, finally spoke, his voice thick with unshed tears. I should have stepped in. I knew something was wrong. But I always let her lead on these things. I failed you, Alara. I was a coward, and I am so sorry. The door creaked open and Chloe stood there, her face tear-streaked, her usual composure shattered. Is Alara going to die? She asked in a small, terrified voice. No one is dying, Aunt Isabel said, her voice ringing with a strength that we all drew from. Alara is a fighter. And we are all going to fight with her. Later that night, after my aunt and sister had left, I asked to be alone with my parents. The air in the room was heavy with their guilt and my pain. Why? I asked simply, the tears I'd been holding back finally streaming down my face. Why didn't you believe me? My mother came to my bedside, her touch hesitant on my arm. I was so scared, Alara. The thought of losing you the same way I lost my own mother, it was unbearable. So I built a wall around it. I told myself it was anything but that. It was denial. A terrible, selfish denial. I know that now. And you, Dad? I looked at him, and for the first time, he met my gaze without flinching. There's no excuse, he said, his voice raw. I let my fear of conflict be more important than my daughter's well-being. I saw your pain, and I chose the easier path of silence. It is the greatest regret of my life. I listened, letting their confessions wash over me. Do you have any idea what that felt like? I asked, my voice breaking. To be so scared and so sick, and to have the people you trust most in the world tell you that you're crazy? Do you know how alone I was? Their shared sob was the only answer I needed. I don't know if I can forgive you, I said, the honesty of the words a relief. Not yet. But right now, what I need more than anything is a mom and a dad. I need you to be here with me for whatever comes next. Can you do that? Through their tears, they both nodded, a silent, broken promise. As the nurse came in to prepare me for the surgery that would happen in the morning, a fragile, uncertain peace settled in the room. The old family was gone, destroyed by lies and fear. But in its place, something new, something raw and honest, was beginning to grow. As the anesthetic pulled me under the next day, my last thought was not of fear, but of a strange, quiet hope that I would wake up with the chance to heal not just my body, but my fractured family as well. The year that followed my surgery was a crucible. It was a landscape of pain, nausea, and debilitating fatigue, but it was also a time of astonishing transformation. The surgery removed 90% of the tumor, a victory that felt miraculous. The 6 months of radiation and chemotherapy that followed were brutal. My hair fell out in soft clumps, and one evening, my mother sat with me in the bathroom, and as my tears fell, she took the electric clippers and shaved her own head in solidarity. We looked at our pale, bald reflections in the mirror, and for the first time in a long time, I saw not a denier, but my mother. My family, shattered by their failure, rebuilt themselves around my fight. My father became a fierce advocate, battling with insurance companies and researching clinical trials with a tenacity I'd never seen in him. Chloe, my golden child sister, threw herself into her studies with a new purpose, announcing her intention to become a pediatric oncologist. Aunt Isabel moved to Port Blossom permanently, her vibrant presence a constant source of warmth and earthy wisdom. Slowly, painfully, we learned to talk to one another. We went to family therapy, where my mother's lifelong habit of using perfectionism as a shield against fear was laid bare. We talked about her grief, about the intergenerational trauma that had trickled down to me. Understanding did not erase the hurt, but it cleared a path toward forgiveness. I did not return to my marine biology studies. My near-death experience had rerouted the currents of my life. I enrolled in social work, driven by a new passion to help other young patients navigate the complex emotional and familial challenges of a serious diagnosis. 2 years after my diagnosis, my quarterly MRI scans still showed no new growth. My doctors called it a durable response, a cautiously optimistic term that I clung to. On the anniversary of my collapse, I organized a 5K run along the coast to raise money for glioblastoma research. Hundreds of people came. As I stood on a small platform on the beach, the microphone in my hand, I saw my family in the front row. My illness was almost a tragedy born of silence and fear, I said, my voice carrying over the sound of the waves. It taught me that the most important voice you can listen to is your own. Your body speaks a language of its own. Trust its whispers before they become screams. After the run, a young woman, no older than I had been, approached me. My family thinks my chronic pain is just anxiety, she whispered, tears in her eyes. But I know something is wrong. I gave her Dr. Sharma's number and a hug that I hoped conveyed all the validation I had once so desperately needed. Keep speaking, I told her. You deserve to be heard. That evening, we all sat on the porch of my parents' house, watching the sun bleed into the Pacific. The old, sterile order was gone, replaced by a comfortable, lived-in warmth. Do you forgive us, Alara? My father asked, the question hanging in the salt-tinged air. I looked out at the endless horizon, at the line where the ocean met the sky, a seam of infinite possibility. I'm learning too, I said honestly. I've learned that forgiveness isn't a single act, like closing a door on the past. It's more like tending a garden. You have to weed out the resentment every day, water the new growth, and trust that in time, something beautiful and strong will bloom. The tumor had nearly taken my life, but in its wake, it had given me a new one. It had forced my family and me to dismantle a house built on a flawless facade and rebuild it on a foundation of messy, complicated, and unconditional love. It had taught me that true strength isn't about pushing through pain in silence. It's about having the courage to ask for help, to demand to be seen, and to trust the deep, insistent wisdom of your own heart.